Welcome. If you're manufacturing, you know the challenge. Your data lives in your ERP, your plant floor systems, your logistics platform, and decisions are getting made on gut instinct instead of live insight. I'm Danielle Doloff. With me today is John Perry, who leads the technical side of Sparkflow here at Liventus. John, thanks for joining.
Yeah, I'm excited and happy to be here, Danielle. What we're going to show you today is particularly exciting for the manufacturing teams. This is questions that you ask every day, production rates or inventory turns or supplier performance, and this is exactly what this feature was built for.
Perfect setup. Let's dig in. Let's talk about the world most of our customers came from before Sparkflow. You had data, sometimes a lot of it, but getting answers out of that data meant one of three things. You waited for IT to build a report, you learned enough SQL yourself to be dangerous, or you exported to Excel, our favorite, and hoped the numbers were right by the time you hit send.
Yeah, and in most cases, the question that you needed to be answered today wasn't the question that a report was designed for. The report was built for last month or last quarter's problem.
Exactly. So you either asked a question you could answer instead of the one you actually needed, or you waited. Neither is acceptable when decisions are moving really fast.
Yeah, and what we've built in Sparkflow is a way to close that gap. You'll be able to type a question in plain English, the way you'd ask a colleague, and the system returns an answer, not a link to a dashboard, but an actual answer in context with the data behind it.
So just explain, how is that different from just typing into a search bar?
Yeah, that's an important distinction, Danielle. A search bar finds documents. A generic
Mhm.
chatbot makes things up if it doesn't know. But Sparkflow's natural language query is grounded. It's connected to your actual data through a semantic model that we've built and validated with you. So that when you ask, what's our accounts receivable and who's trending downward, the system knows exactly which tables to query, which metrics to use, and how you've defined what your delinquency or your late accounts receivable. It's not guessing.
Yeah, that's the key, right? It's not guessing. And that's what makes it safe to actually use in business context. You're not just getting a plausible sounding answer, you're getting your numbers. For manufacturing teams, the data challenge is often about operational tempo. You have shift data, production runs, scrap rates, supplier lead times, and decisions are made on the floor in the moment, not in a quarterly review. You shouldn't need a data analyst to answer what was our line efficiency last Tuesday compared to the week before.
And with Sparkflow connected to your ERP and your other operational systems, that question gets answered in near real time using your plant, your operational terminology. And we'll show exactly how that works.
Okay, John, why don't we show them what we're talking about?
Sure, that'd be great. I'm going to show you my Claude session just a moment here. All right, so I'm in Claude. But someone at a management level might actually want to know. So I'll type a really simple query here, or simple prompt, and let's see. Let's see. What were total revenues? Whoop, you got to type correctly for
You
2025.
might not even need to type correctly, actually.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So Claude's going to think about this for a minute, and it's going to actually run a query against our semantic model. And then it's going to go and retrieve that answer. And it gave me a very simple answer. I asked a very simple question, 782.1 million. And now let's dive in just a little bit deeper.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's break that down. So I'll tell it, break down my 2025 sales by customer. And that's a little bit more complex. So let's see what it does.
I think what's good to note here is it is often telling you what it's doing, right?
Yes.
So I think this is if you had used an LLM 6 months ago, God, I don't even know how long ago, but something like that. It really didn't give you this. Now it's a bit more, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is where I got the information. So important thing for people to know. It's starting to give us something
Yeah,
here.
it's starting to build out some of the visuals. It's not just a text answer. With many of these LLMs, it's going to build a report, an analysis that you can interact with, and so it takes a moment to build that out. But it's giving me not just what I ask, but it's giving me a lot of ways to interact with this data. So it shows me my 782.1 million. It shows different customers and what's classified and unclassified, might have some data issues there. And it's, let's bring in the unclassified. Looks like we've got some bad data in this set, but let's look at the named customers. And this is for an organic food manufacturer and distributor. and it gives me a nice report, nice bar graph, as well as the report below, and then begins to answer some additional questions, interpreting what I might want out of this. So,
And I think what I want to point out here is you didn't ask these last three sections, these last three paragraphs. We didn't ask that. It is kind of it offers that analysis just off the get-go. It tries to think about what would be the next logical questions, and I think that's what's the power of it. Here, what he's showing is it's returning what he asked, but when you scroll back down, it dives a little bit further, almost as if you had an analyst and you asked that person these questions. They're like, "Hey, wait a minute, I noticed these couple things." I think that's what's in, kind of the next level here.
and I think it's important to note that it hasn't hallucinated. It says, here's what I know and here's what I don't know.
Yes, yes. Um, Speaking of that, I guess we did answer that.
Well, why don't we take a look at this same data by a different aspect of the data?
Perfect.
Break, break down the 2025 sales by product code. And you see there's a microphone here, and that might be what I have to resort to, is that I actually need to speak instead of type, because I can sometimes speak better than I type. So it's going to go through and analyze this by a different breakdown, and we'll see what's happening here.
Yes.
So again, it's going to go and query the semantic model that we talked about, that it's built around the logic of that structured, governed data, and it's going to bring that back. Again, building a similar type analysis, but broken down by product code.
All right. Again, this takes, I don't know, what is this, 25, 30 seconds, but significantly faster than building a brand new report, asking your team to build a report, asking a vendor to build a report, or getting to SQL yourself, like we talked about.
So the services category is
Oh,
outweighing most of the things, but when we get down to actual products, we see our different categories, and that brings that back again with another drill down, another analysis, and we can drill down into lower and lower levels. If I want to do that, let me say break down juices, and cold press by item this time period. So I saw something that was my highest category, and we'll watch it cook, though I don't think I want cooked juice, but and it's going to do a deeper dive analysis into that one category, item by item.
again, it's kind of, on the fly. Um, and if you kind of think about this, you've got you or your team. Now you've become curious. Now you're curious about what's going on. I'm diving into juices, and I'm not stopped up by waiting for reports. I can just keep diving until I get at the real core of the issue or the core of the opportunity. And then it's not like a week later and you forgot your question. Right.
Exactly. So that's gone by very quickly. So let's look at this. I think it's important to note that because it's got a governed semantic model, it's got guardrails up here. It's not going to answer questions that it doesn't have clear answers to. So I'm going to ask it a question that I believe it won't have an answer to. So break down my 2025 sales by, let's see, by raw material used in the products. And I know that that's not in there. Let's make sure that Claude knows that it's not in there as well. So there's nothing about this data that tells me the raw materials that make that
Okay.
up. If that was important to me, look at item 2 there, that I could actually create raw material classification of every one of my items. And if this was an important question, enhancing that data model would be really helpful for this.
Yeah, that's key in building confidence in the results that you're getting, that it is got a level of transparency, maybe honesty around where it does have data and it doesn't have data, and then also giving you some instruction on how to fix that if it's something you want to do. But it doesn't just make something up or hallucinate.
Right. That governed semantic model, as I said earlier, really creates guardrails around what the LLM will actually interpret of that data.
So, how do I know if this is secure? Is my data going to an external AI?
It's a great question and one we should all be concerned about. This data will stay in your environment. Full stop. That's what we need to be concerned about. The important thing in this is that whatever large language model that we use, we need to have that set to zero data retention. That means that the data never leaves the bounds. It's never shared with your tool provider. It stays within your environment and is never stored on their servers to train other models.
Perfect. Good to know. How long does this take to get set up?
Well, it always is a it depends question.
Uh-huh.
It depends on how far you are along in this evolution in your data foundation. So if you're an existing Sparkflow customer, we've built your semantic models, we've really vetted and governed those models. Enabling this natural language query is in days, not months and weeks. If you're earlier in the journey and you haven't gone through the effort with us to go to have these governed, proven semantic models, the work is going to be about getting that data model set up correctly first, because we need to have that well-structured, well-governed model, and then use the AI tools on top of it. So that is work that is vitally important, and it pays off in the end by having good answers to your questions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the investment of getting your data in a healthy spot, and then you can play with it. That's
Mhm.
the natural language querying is the return on that. So, what about, questions that I may have my data in multiple systems, not just an ERP or a single system, but I have a front end system like a CRM or an invoicing or payroll. How do I handle that?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. That it's rare that companies just operate out of a single
Mhm.
system. So one of the things that we do well with Sparkflow is to be able to combine data from multiple data sources and bring that into a cohesive, coherent, common data model. So when we do that from whatever system that data comes from, being able to bring that all together and then use the natural language query capabilities allows us to query into the broad spectrum of data that you have available to you. Not only that, we can query from model to model. If you have a sales model and an accounts receivable model and a financial model, we can ask questions that combine data from those different sources in single queries. It may take a little bit longer to generate, but it brings data together.
Great. What training does my team need to get up and running?
Yeah, it's very minimal. We'll typically have a 30-minute orientation to give people an idea of how to connect to the different models, how to form meaningful prompts, but you understand as the customer your business. And so we work with you to make sure that that business terminology is understandable by the model. And then you're going to become better and better as the customer as you understand what's available in that data set and how to ask the questions that fit in with the way that you naturally think about your business. That's it.
But yeah, most people are up and running pretty fast.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's very intuitive.
Yeah, and I think it's important that you don't have to be a, 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 a data engineer or a data scientist to ask these questions of the data. It's a pretty light thing. It will become second nature to you as you get your hands on this capability.
For manufacturing teams, the opportunity to stop making decisions with yesterday's data, your operations move fast, your insight needs to keep up. Sparkflow gives your team the ability to ask questions in the moment and get answers they can act on without waiting for a report or pulling in IT. So, if you're curious what this looks like for your specific production environment, your specific data, reach out. We've worked with manufacturing organizations of all sizes and know the operational realities.
Yeah, and thank you for being here and watching this. We'll get answers back to anything we didn't cover in the session notes.
Thanks, everyone.
And if you're an existing Sparkflow customer, please reach out to me or your implementation team and ask about what's needed to turn this on. The conversation will be much shorter than you think.
Thanks so much for your time. Take care, everyone.